everybody, hope you're all doing well. I'm Carly and welcome to Belle's Books. It's August and I've got right stuck into my Newt's TBR with my first book. Katie's with me, she wants a meet, so she's rolling about like a loon. Apologies for lots of jingle jangle, it's her collar. She's going to be very distracting, I can tell. Anyway, I am here today to talk to you about the books I read in July, so doing my July wrap up. She's rolling, I knew she would. I read 8 books in July, 3 of which were on audio. So, to start with, I read Celestial Bodies by Jokha Al-Hati. This is translated by Marilyn Booth. This is a novel set in Oman. So it's about an Omani family. It traces 3 different generations, lots of characters. I was really keen to read this. It was for my book club, so it was chosen by... Who chose it? Can't remember who chose it. Oh, sorry girls. Anyway, we had a really good discussion about this book. There was lots to talk about, but it wasn't one that I enjoyed reading. Now, I'll talk about why in a minute. So, it's about generations of this Omani family and lots of other ancillary characters. So the premise on the back of the book said it was about 3 sisters and the choices they make and the repercussions of those choices. So we have Asma, who marries out of duty, although she marries an artist and goes... She's the one that like reads lots of books and wants an education. Then you've got Maya, who it's set up at the beginning like she marries out of a heartbreak, but just some dude that she fancies, and then she doesn't get together with him, so she marries someone else, which is who her parents put forward. He's like the son of a merchant, so he's quite rich. And she has this relationship with him, and she has children, as is expected. And then there's the 3rd sister, Kaula, who waits for a cousin that is kind of betrothed to her, but not really. So I thought it was going to be about their lives and be their voices, but the narrative is split. So in the 3rd person, it tells the stories of these women and lots of other characters around them. But the main consistent narrative is from the point of view of Abdullah, who is Maya's husband, and he's the one that is speaking in 1st person. Now, and this is split over different time periods, which usually I am quite happy with. But this I found slightly confusing because Abdullah's narrative, he's in the present reflecting on what's happened. So his kids are grown up and he's on a plane somewhere and he's looking back on his life. Then you go to skip to Maya's narrative and she's just... It's her wedding day, she's getting married, or then she's pregnant and then she's had the baby, so you're going back in time. And usually I'm fine with that, doesn't cause me any problems, but this I found really confusing, and I don't know whether it was the names or if there were references that I felt like I didn't get, just didn't gel with this book. But it was such a great book club book because there were lots of things going on in here for us to unpack, so we had a good discussion. Big themes in here, big themes. So it looks at Omani society and how it's changed over 3 generations, the way that technology and modernity has kind of affected people's daily lives. It's a very patriarchal society, obviously, and women have to fulfill these roles in society. They have to get married, they have to have babies, yada yada yada. So the most recent generation have more freedom, and it kind of reflects on the way that that's changed. There's a lot in here to do with master-slave relationships because the older generations, there was slavery going on in here. So one of the characters was a rich guy and he had slaves. And then even when they were liberated, so it was the reaction of the characters to their liberation. So one of them, she was a slave, but she was also his his mistress, and she still stayed behind even when she was freed. And her son just couldn't fathom it, and he was like, "Get out and just go somewhere else." And she was like, "Why would I go anywhere else? This is my home." So there's some really interesting themes in here, but beware, there's a lot of cruelty in this book. I found it quite I mean, I've read some difficult books, but I found this quite difficult to read. There were some instances where I was like, oh, that's harsh. So yeah, I can understand the literary merit of this text, but it was not an enjoyable reading experience for me, so I gave it 3 stars. But a great book club book if you want to take it along to your book club. Pick it. It was the winner of the Man International Booker Prize for this year. So yeah, that was that. Then on a completely different tangent, I listened to what was it? The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I thought, because I'm trying to listen to audiobooks which are like kind of not too complicated and I can listen to in the car and not lose track. So I had an impression of this book and I thought, oh, you know, it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's going to be about Hollywood and glamour and glitterati and kind of easygoing. This book was totally not what I thought it was going to be, and it blew my mind a little bit, and I really loved it, to the point where I was not just listening to it in the car, I was listening to it in the house when I could have actually read my normal book and my physical book that I was reading. I wanted to get through this story. So the premise is there's this very glamorous woman who is an actress in Hollywood called Evelyn Hugo. I can't remember how old she is, but she's kind of nearing the end of her life, if you like, and she's a bit of a recluse, and she picks out this unknown journalist to tell her life story to write her biography. So there's something going on there with why she picks this unknown journalist, because everyone wants an exclusive on her and everyone wants to know what the deal is with her 7 husbands and her life. So she picks this girl, Monique, to write her story. So you get mostly is about Evelyn's story, but it's also about Monique's story, like her life's going down the drain, her husband's left her, she's got no career, and then she gets Evelyn Hugo rock up and be like, I want you to write my biography, and she's like, what? And so you hear about Evelyn's life and her 7 husbands, and there's this mysterious love of her life that no one knew about, and it just goes off on a tangent that I totally loved it. I fell in love with the story, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it was just so good. And there's a little twist at the end. But yeah, just really, really loved it. I gave it 4 stars, I think. Right, next, let me look at my Goodreads because I can't remember. Also on audio, I read Tilly and the Book Wanderers, which is a middle grade fiction book by Anna James. And again, I just thought, oh, I'll listen to this because it's middle grade, so it'll be easy and it's fun. Oh, it's such a delight. It's so lovely. It's obviously for kids, but it's such a bookworm's book. So any booktuber's going to love this, because it's about this young girl who lives in a bookshop, and I think she gets to the age of, I can't remember, 11, and she realises that she can have conversations with her favourite book characters. So she starts speaking to Alice in Wonderland and Anne of Green Gables, who are also my favourite childhood characters. And then she realises she can wander into the pages of the book and go into their story and be in that world. Oh, it's just amazing. And her grandparents can do it too. And there's so many like little nods that you'll get if you love all these books. So like her grandmother loves Elizabeth Bennet, and she's having a little chat with her friend Lizzie, and her grandfather is talking to Sherlock Holmes. It's just so adorable. And then there's obviously some drama that goes on, and just so many lovely bookish things. Like she goes to the British Library, and there's a secret world under the British Library called the Underlibrary. Oh, now every time I go in there, I look at the King's Library where the entrance is to the Underlibrary, and I think it's real. Oh, it's just so delightful. It's so cosy. It's set over October half term, so it will be so good if you listen to it or read it during October half term. Although the sequel is out in autumn, and I think it might be September, so I'm now waiting for the sequel, going, I can't wait. It's just such a lovely, lovely book. yeah, I can't praise it enough. Gave it 5 stars, and I haven't read a middle grade in ages. Oh, it was just beautiful. Next, what do we have? Oh, then I read All the Birds Singing by Evie Wilde. I got this out of my library, so I don't have it to show you. Now, I really like this book, but again, it's quite raw because it touches on some difficult subjects. So, trigger warning for sexual abuse. It runs 2 narratives. It's so clever. The narrative structure is just so well done. So you've got a current present day narrative which is running forward, telling the story of Jack White. She is an Australian that is now living on a remote English island. You don't know where, but it's very tied to the landscape. Now, I love books that have good nature writing and deal with landscape and connections to the land. So she's a sheep farmer in this remote cottage. She lives by herself. She doesn't have any interaction with the locals, apart from one farmer dude that she bought the farm off called Don. And he keeps saying, come to the pub and meet people. And she's like, no. And then you get to know what's happened to her in her previous life by the second part of the narrative. So it's each chapter, one chapter in the current day and one chapter is in her previous life in Australia. And that moves backwards. So you go to like how she got out of the situation she was in, which is horrific, and then it moves back and back and back so you can see how she started there. And it just, oh god, it was so full of tension, and it just kept me engaged. I really wanted to carry on, but even though some of it was quite difficult to read, and then it all comes together at the end bizarrely, where you work out what happened to her to kick all this off, because she's obviously had some traumatic stuff going on. But the bit where the narrative where she's in the English farm, something spooky. There's like a spooky vibe to it because something is killing her sheep, like ripping them apart. Like I said in the when I talked about this in my book haul, a formidable beast. So you don't know whether it's actually a mythical creature, something coming out of the woods and ripping her sheep apart, whether it's, she keeps saying it's kids, or something else, yeah, or whether it's like something going on with her brain. Man, it was just so good. It was so good. Yeah, so I gave that 4 stars, I think. Really loved it, but yes, again, you need something soft to counteract afterwards, because it was a bit like, but a great book. Okay, what next? Oh, another, right, this is my favourite book of the year so far. Stand By, Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Now, I read this before it was announced. It was in the long list for the Booker Prize. So I was so happy when I saw the long list for this, for the prize, and I was like, yes, get in, because that is my favourite book this year. So, Girl, Woman, Other. It is broken down into sections, and it talks about 3 different characters in each section, and you get the lives of, 12 main characters. Excuse me. Oh, I'm getting too excited. I'm talking too fast. So, 12 main characters, and they are mostly black, mostly British women. And most of them kind of intersect a little bit, so you get in depth into each of these characters. So, first character, I think, is Amma. She's a theatre director and a badass feminist. I loved her. And then you get her daughter, Yaz, who is also a feminist, but is slightly more privileged. And the thing that I loved about this book was the commentary on privilege, because these are the stories of black British women through lots of different time periods, different social standings, different class, and I just love the way that she discussed the intersectionality of feminism. So she has these different women are some of them are first generation immigrants, some of them are second generation. Some of them distance themselves from their culture. So you've got Carol, who goes to Oxford University, and as an attempt to integrate herself into like posh university life, she kind of distances herself from, like, not from her mother, but from her heritage and her background. And her mother, her mother Bumi, is like the best. I love her voice. And she's just like, what's going on with my girl? She doesn't want to eat this food, and she doesn't want to be part of her own heritage. And so Carol kind of goes all posh and goes horse riding and marries a dude called Freddie, who seems a bit rah-rah. And yes, and then there's like so many. I just loved all of these characters, but there were some of them where you just like, I think it was Penelope, the last one, that I was like, why is she in this? I don't like her at all. And because like she's a stuck-up white woman. And then it's just, oh man, it comes together at the end. It just blows your mind. There's such great representation in this. I loved all the characters. We've got a trans character who goes from Megan to Morgan, but is fluidly gendered, doesn't want to identify as one or the other, and is totally accepted by their grandmother, whose name is Hattie, I think, who's just like, whatever you are, I don't care, and is totally accepting when you know that there's going to be resistance from other people to that. I'm not explaining this book very well, but I just want everyone to go and read it because it's so good. It just blew my mind. So that was my 5-star book, and I hope it wins. I hope it wins the Booker. Right, next I read I Am Sovereign by Nicola Barker. Now I've done a separate review video for this, so I'll link that in the description box down below. I requested this from the publisher, and they very kindly sent it to me because I'm studying Nicola Barker for my PhD, and I wanted to see if I could use it for my thesis, which I can, and it's amazing. So it is experimental, but it's a super fun read. Like, it's hilarious. She's so funny. It basically tells the story of a 20-minute house viewing and the characters that interact within that 20-minute house viewing. But a load of just really odd stuff happens, and it kind of, the novel breaks down. It's really small. Oh, Katie's got stuff to say about this. Katie, it's not meet time yet. You have to wait. You have to wait till 6 o'clock. It's only 5:30. Now you've made me forget what I was saying. Yes, and the novel kind of breaks down, and Barker herself enters the fray, and it's just, I just love that bit. It's so brilliant. Anyway, yeah, I'll link my review down below of that. Definitely go and read it if you fancy a fourth wall break, because it's hilarious. Next, I listened to another audiobook. Again, audiobooks this month in July have really surprised me, because I thought this one would be a nice, cosy, rural read about a farm and a girl coming of age, which it was. It was All Among the Barley by Melissa Harrison. This was recommended by Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings. I'll link her channel down below. I just heard it. I was like, oh, I'll read that. That sounds good. Or I'll listen to that. Another one that just blew my mind. It was a cozy rural read. It's about Edie, who is a 14-year-old girl living on a farm in, I think it's 1933. So she's growing up. She's helping on the farm. Beautiful, beautiful nature writing. Beautiful descriptions of the farm life and the land, and the way that the farmers interact with the land, and it's their entire life. I loved that. I loved that coziness of it, but then it just kind of went off on a tangent that I was not expecting. So there's a character called Constance Fitzallen. She's a bit of a toff. She comes in to write articles about rural life and the preservation of rural life, and so she interviews all of these people and comes and takes their pictures and stuff. and you kind of like her because she's a bit sassy. First of all, she's like, she dresses as a man. She's got lots of freedom, and she kind of shows Edie the possibilities that her life could potentially have if she doesn't stay where she is. Because if she stays where she is, she knows she's got to get married and have babies and live on a farm for the rest of her life. But Constance Fitzallen proves, like, you can have a different life. You can write articles and be a fancy, going to parties, whatever, dressing like a man, swimming naked in the lake. And it is a bit of a sexual awakening for Edie, because there's this dude, Alfie, who keeps trying to come onto her, and she's like, oh God. But meanwhile, she's fantasizing about Constance because she's pretty. But then it just... I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it blew my mind, the ending. It was like, oh my God. It wasn't a cozy real read at the end. But so good. I just loved it so much. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it, because I don't want to give any spoilers away. Yes, Katie, you calm down now. And now all I want to do is seek out Melissa Harrison's back catalogue, which there is another book in my library that I'm going to go for after I've done my Newts TBR. So got my eye on that. Yeah, really good. That's still buzzing in my brain as well, because oh look, I have it here. Although I listened to the audiobook, I got this out from my library to take to the lady that I visit, because I volunteer for Cambridge Libraries, and I visit a lady who is housebound, and I take her library books. So I'm taking her this to see what she makes of it, so then we can have a nice chat about it. Oh yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Looking forward to getting to Melissa Harrison's other work as well. I've been terrible at holding up books today, but I don't have many of them. And the last one that I read in July was Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. This was another book club book. My meeting is on Monday. And this was a fun read. Again, another great book for book lovers. It's about a dude that goes to work in a shady-looking bookstore in San Francisco, where they don't sell many current books, and these people come in like late at night and ask for these tomes, which are all coded books, and they're all like a secret society trying to crack a code. And then he gets embroiled in it with Mr. Penumbra, who is the manager of the shop, and he starts seeing a girl from Google who puts in the whole load of Google's resources to try and crack this code. He goes off on a bit of an adventure. It's super fun. I really enjoyed reading it. Am I going to probably forget it? Yeah, it's a 3-star read for me. But I enjoyed it at the time. And yeah, that's all I've really got to say on that one. So those are the books that I read in July. I'm quite pleased with that. I know I've picked a lot for my August TBR, and they're all big, so I don't think I'm going to get through them. Plus, I have got lots of PhD reading, and I'm writing a paper for a conference in September, which means I have to reread the books that I'm writing the paper on. So, bit nervous about that. Anyway, this has gone on for way too long, so I'm going to cut it off there, and I will see you all in my next video. Thank you for watching. Talk to me in the comments below if you've read any of these books, if you want to read any of these books. I just had a lovely, lovely reading month. Okay, right, shut up, Carly. I'm going now. Bye!